All right, just speaking of counter-programming, a programming note for you. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock, there'll be a hybrid briefing by Guy Ryder. He'll be here in person. He's, as you know, the Undersecretary General for Policy. He will brief you on the record on the updates on UN 80. And I think you all got by email the presentations that he shared with member states last week. So that's what he will address. That's at 11 o'clock. I will do my best to brief on time at noon tomorrow, because at 12:45, Ambassador Issim Iftikhar Ahmad of the Permanent Representative of Pakistan will be here to brief you, because he is, as you know, the President of the Security Council for the month of July, and he'll brief you on that.
It's in the back, the TV's on.
Oh, the TV. Who's in the booth? Oh.
The TV's on.
The TV, yeah. Let's try it again. I have an alter ego, but I'm not used to having an echo. Does it sound better now? A little bit. Can we try it now?
There's some action.
Some action?
No, nobody's there.
I think he's going.
I think they left.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Ah, there we go. That's all it takes. Thank you. All right. Also, just on important note for all of you, because I know this comes as a surprise to everybody, but there is General Assembly meeting in September, which means there's an accreditation deadline for all of your colleagues who will be visiting, and our friends at Malu reminding everyone the deadline to apply for media accreditation to cover the GA is August 29th. I know it's a long way from now, but it bears reminding often. Turning to the Secretary General, who, as you know, is in Sevilla in Spain, where he's attending the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development. This morning at the opening of the conference, he said that financing is the engine of development, and right now this engine is sputtering. As we meet, the Secretary General pointed out that the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is our global promise to transform our world for a better and fairer future, is in danger. He stressed that the conference is not about charity, it's about restoring justice and lives of dignity. The Secretary General also added the conference is not about money, it's about investing in the future, a future that we want to build together. In the afternoon, at the launch of the Sevilla Platform for Action, the Secretary General highlighted that the platform offers an ambitious, action-oriented response to global financing challenges. Soon after the opening of the International Business Forum, soon after the opening, at the International Business Forum, the Secretary General underscored that by uniting public and private sector leaders, regulators, and development banks, we can ensure the conference is not an end, but a beginning. The Secretary General also addressed your colleagues in Sevilla at a joint press encounter with the President of the Government of Spain, Pedro Sanchez. At the conference, he stressed that with the adoption of the Sevilla Commitment document, countries are proving their dedication to getting the engine of development revving again. Today, the Secretary General also held bilateral meetings with the President of the Government of Spain. Yesterday, he met with His Majesty Felipe VI, King of Spain. He's also having a number of bilateral meetings with other delegation leaders who will be at the conference. He will share readouts of some of those meetings with you shortly. Also in Sevilla is our Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed. She joined the Secretary General at the opening of the conference. Later, she delivered remarks at the side events focused on closing the SDG financing gap, including the role of public-private cooperation, the centrality of gender equality in sustainable finance, and the leadership of African women in advancing the Agenda 2030 and the African Union's Agenda 2063. She also held bilateral meetings with senior government officials and heads of government attending the conference. Also, on the sidelines of the conference, The Sevilla Compromise reaffirmed the global commitment to inclusive, sustainable development. However, UN Women is warning that chronic underfunding and unfair financial systems are hindering gender equality progress. Developing countries are falling short by an estimated $420 billion a year in the funding needed to achieve the gender equality under the Sustainable Development Goals. UN Women is urging world leaders to match political commitments with the sustained, transparent, and accountable financing needed to deliver promises on half the world's population. Turning to the situation in Gaza, and I can tell you that the Secretary General is alarmed by the new evacuation orders issued by Israeli authorities in northern Gaza, which have once again displaced tens of thousands of people. The Secretary General condemns the continued loss of civilian life resulting from Israeli airstrikes and other attacks. All parties must comply fully with international law at all times. Civilians must be respected and they must be protected. There must be a full, safe, and sustained humanitarian access in accordance with the humanitarian principles of humanity, of impartiality, of neutrality, and independence. All hostages held in Gaza must be released immediately and unconditionally. The Secretary General welcomes the continued efforts by the mediators and reiterates his appeal to the parties to urgently reach a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. And just to give you a bit more granularity from our colleagues at the Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, and given the heavy constraints on bringing in supplies and carrying out humanitarian operations across Gaza, people are going hungry. The World Food Program reports that 1 in 5 people faces catastrophic levels of hunger, and more than 90,000 women and children urgently require treatment for malnutrition. WFP tells us that about 130,000 metric tons of food are positioned in the region and ready to serve people in Gaza if improved access is granted. We reiterate that Israel must facilitate the access and entry of essential supplies into Gaza through available crossing points and corridors to address the people's urgent needs. Meanwhile, we and our partners call on the Israeli authorities with utmost urgency to allow the entry of fuel into Gaza. This is critically needed for life-saving operations, including hospitals, desalination plants, sanitation equipment, telecommunications, and of course, moving actual cargo from one point to the other, and for operating of the community kitchens, which are so central to feeding people in Gaza. If the ban on fuel continues, more of these critical services will shut down soon, and in some areas, very soon. OCHA warns that the implications are life-threatening. Yesterday, the Israeli military issued another displacement order in the areas of Jabalia and Gaza City, instructing people to go to El-Mawasi. This follows another displacement order in central Gaza over the weekend. About 150,000 human beings were in the area slated for displacement from yesterday's order alone, including families staying in dozens of displacement sites. People are being pushed into overcrowded areas where thousands of others are already staying. These spaces lack shelter, they lack water, they lack sewage systems, not to mention medical facilities. You might recall that beyond fuel, the entry of Gaza of critical shelter material, which for us means tents, plastics, sheeting, timber, and other household items, has been denied now for 17 weeks. OCHA reminds us that most of Gaza remains under displacement order. Israel, as the occupying power, must ensure the protection of civilians wherever they are and wherever they go. Meanwhile, OCHA tells us that Israeli authorities continue to deny many humanitarian movements. Yesterday, they rejected 5 out of the 15 attempts by us to coordinate such movements, including efforts to remove solid waste and debris to recover broken trucks. 2 other missions could not be accomplished, either because of impediment or because the organizers had to cancel them. The remaining 8 missions, which include movement of staff, were facilitated and accomplished. Our partners report a rising risk of gender-based violence across all governorates in the past 2 months, with women especially affected by incidents where they are denied services and resources. as they seek to provide for their families. In April and May, some 45 partners were providing psychosocial support, safe shelter, and dignity kits to women. However, other critical services, such as legal assistance, remain very limited or just unavailable. And this morning, also staying on the occupied Palestinian territory, Khaled Kyari, the Assistant Secretary General in the Political and Peacebuilding Department, briefed Security Council members and said that the level of suffering and brutality in Gaza is unbearable and the continued collective punishment of the Palestinian people is unjustifiable. Mr. Kyari also said that we remain deeply alarmed by the relentless Israeli settlement expansion in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and the rising violence there that we've been talking about. He noted that military operations by Israeli security forces in the northern West Bank have resulted in high levels of fatalities, including women and children, significant population displacement, and the destruction of homes and infrastructure, particularly in refugee camps. Moving north to southern Lebanon, our peacekeepers there tell us that military activities by Israeli defense forces continue, including airstrikes and artillery shelling. UNIFIL peacekeepers also continue to discover unauthorized weapons and ammunition caches in the area of operations. On June 27th, they found that 2 transport containers of rockets, 2 rocket launchers, and mortar shells in Sector West. On June 29th, an empty cave covered with tarpaulin and sealed boxes of mortar shells nearby were found in Sector East. These discoveries were reported to the Lebanese armed forces, as we do with every one of them. Meanwhile, obstructions of UNIFIL movements in the area of operations also continue. These incidents impede effective mandate implementation and jeopardize the safety and security of our peacekeepers. It remains crucial that the parties ensure unhindered freedom of movement for UNIFIL. And staying in the same region and turning to Syria later this afternoon, Geir Pedersen, our special envoy for Syria, will brief Security Council in a closed session. He will brief on the terrorist attack that took place on June 22nd against the Mar Elias Orthodox Church, which, as you'll recall, we all strongly condemned. Mr. Pedersen is currently in Damascus, so he'll brief via video conference. Yesterday, he met with the interim president of Syria, Ahmad al-Shara, and the interim foreign minister, Assad al-Shabani. Discussions focused on the church attack and the broader context of Syria's security challenges. Mr. Pedersen is also engaged with other concerned parties, including the Patriarch of the Orthodox Church. The special envoy noted that many security and terrorism challenges on the ground and the risks Syria faces from unresolved conflicts and widespread feelings of exclusion. He acknowledged the efforts made by the interim authorities on security while underlying the importance of intensified efforts and greater international support in that area. He also spoke about our commitment in supporting an inclusive political transition that ensures the safety of all Syrians and meets the aspirations of all Syrian people. Turning to Ukraine, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tells us that weekend attacks struck multiple parts of Ukraine, including areas that had previously been less affected by the ongoing war. Between the 26th of June and today, more than 20 civilians were killed and nearly 150 injured. That's what local authorities are telling us. Several children were listed among the injured. The strikes also disrupted electricity and water supplies in the regions of Kherson and Lviv, compounding the existing hardship for residents. Urban centers, including Samar and Dnipro and Smila in Cherkasy region and the city of Odessa, came under attack, killing and injuring civilians, damaging infrastructure such as apartments and health facilities and schools. Aid workers mobilized rapid response in Cherkasy and Odessa, providing first aid, hot meals, shelter materials, and child support to complement the work of first responders and local actors. In Dnipro, partners working in health scaled up their response following intensified attacks in June that killed and injured numerous civilians and damaged hospitals. Rapid medical response team and medical health professionals have been deployed to respond to rising health needs among affected civilians and those fleeing the frontline areas. Moving to Sudan, our World Food Program colleagues today warned that millions of Sudanese people took refuge in neighboring countries, face worsening hunger and malnutrition due to severe funding shortages. Children are especially at risk, with malnutrition rates reaching emergency levels. Since the conflict erupted in April of 2023, over 4 million people have left Sudan with little more than the clothes on their backs. Yet they are being met with more hunger, despair, limited resources on the other side of the border. WFP is doing its utmost by providing emergency food, cash, and nutrition support across 7 countries hosting these refugees, but resources are running out. To zoom in closer to the dire situation, in Uganda, for instance, refugees survive on less than 500 calories per day. That is less than a quarter of what the daily nutritional intake should be. And in Chad, which hosts almost a quarter of the 4 million refugees who fled Sudan, food rations will be reduced in the coming months unless new money is received. WFP urgently needs $200 million for regional refugee support and $575 million for operations inside Sudan. Immediate international funding and, no less importantly, a political action to end the crisis are urgently needed for the sake of the people of Sudan who continue to suffer. And just for the record, you saw we issued a statement over the weekend in which the Secretary General welcomed the signing of a peace agreement by the governments of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda, which was facilitated by the United States. He said it's a significant step towards de-escalation, peace, and stability in the eastern part of the DRC and the broader Great Lakes region. He urges the parties to honor the full commitment they have undertaken in the peace agreement, pursuant to Security Council Resolution 2773, including cessation of hostilities and other agreed measures. Full statement is online. And often been asked about Afghan refugees, and I want to flag a report by UNHCR today, which says they're witnessing a sharp increase in the number of Afghan refugees returning in adverse circumstances from Iran. Over 640,000 Afghan refugees have returned from Iran since the implementation of a return deadline by the Iranian government on March 20th of this year, with over 360,000 of them being deported. Families often arrive with scant belongings, exhausted, hungry, scared about what awaits them in a country many of them have never set foot in. Women and girls are particularly worried as they fear the restrictions on freedom of movement and basic rights, such as education and employment. In total, so far this year, 1.2 million Afghans have returned to their country or been forced to return from Iran and Pakistan. UNHCR warns that as the number of Afghans returning rise, the situation is becoming increasingly unsustainable. We continue to stress the returns of refugees must be safe, it must be voluntary, and it must be dignified. Today is the International Day of Parliamentarism. It offers the opportunity to review the progress that parliaments have made in achieving some key goals, including more women and young members of parliament around the world. And I would ask you to look up to the ceiling because it is International Asteroid Day. This day aims to raise... we do what we can. Yeah. Today is also International Asteroid Day. This day aims to raise public awareness about the asteroid impact, hazards, and actions should be taken at the global level in case of a credible near-Earth object threat. Until that happens, the United Nations still needs money, and today we got money. So we got a quiz. All right, ready? This country is the 8th most populous country in the world with over 170 million people. It's home to the largest mangrove forest, which is a UNESCO protected site.
Indonesia.
Nope.
Nigeria.
Nope.
Nigeria?
No. All right. You want more clue?
Yes.
The mangrove is called the Sundarbans mangrove.
Bangladesh.
Yes. Who said Bangladesh? Yes. Thank you. And thank you, Luis. And we also thank our friends in Dhaka, who have broken a payment drought for us, and they are the 112th to pay up. There's more room to come. Deji, then Amidi.
Yes, today the Israeli ambassador Nun obviously accused a lot of things about on UN. One of them is that UN is spreading misinformation with Hamas in Gaza to let people not to go to those Gaza humanitarian fund position. Any response?
We're not in the business of spreading misinformation, right? I think the Secretary General yesterday, in an answer to one of your colleagues, on Friday, said, I think we all see the videos that are coming out of Gaza.
He said we don't need reports of that nature.
Deji, right, sorry. More importantly, we are not in the business of telling people not to go get food from a food distribution center, right? Who are we to tell people who are in desperate need of food not to do something that may get them food? What we're saying is that the food distribution operation run by the GHF, doesn't meet the standards of the basic standards of impartiality, of independence, of safety for recipients. And we're saying, let the UN do its work and let others do their work. We're open to others doing it with us. We can't do it alone. All we ask is that others who want to set up humanitarian operations do it in a way that is safe and sustainable. Amélie.
Thanks, Steph. About Sudan and the proposal of the Secretary General for a one-week truce in El Fasher, is there any progress on that? Did you get any answer from the RSF side? Thank you.
Well, we've seen. I mean, we just saw at this point the press reports that were sort of negative messaging from the RSF on that point. But our message, our push for that 8 week humanitarian access continues, and also as a reminder that Security Council Resolution 2736 clearly states that the RSF must immediately lift the siege around El Fasher and cease hostilities, and humanitarian agencies must have unhindered access. Meanwhile, Mr. Lamamra is continuing his work, his good offices. He's currently finalizing consultations with the African Union on the next consultative group meeting to be organized with the AU in Addis Ababa, and he's just continuing on his contacts. Madame.
Last week, the GFH sent a letter to the Secretary General asking the UN to collaborate with them. Did the UN respond?
We're in the process of responding, but our public message and our private message is the same. I mean, as I told your colleagues last week, a few weeks back, we were invited in Israel to hear from the GHF, and we went because we don't refuse these kinds of meetings. Our concerns continue. I think we've all seen what is happening. Again, we're not saying that GHF should not operate. What we're saying is that whether it's the GHF or others, they need to operate in ways that are safe. And I think everyone can see that currently it's not safe. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. We had our operations when unleashed worked, and we're asking for that again. We'll go down the front row, please.
Just a quick question on the aid. There have been reports that some of the flour bags, I know this is not UN aid, but the flour bags were laced with oxycodone. Do you have any comment on that?
No, I mean, we've seen these reports. Again, I think we're living in an environment where there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation. It's hard to get at what is really happening. I mean, I think the videos that we're seeing speak for themselves. But I think these kinds of stories are yet another reason why journalists should be able to be in Gaza and do their work. Edie.
Thank you, Steph. Can you tell us what Sigrid Kaag and other senior UN officials are doing to try and break some of these roadblocks to getting UN aid into Gaza? And is anything getting to the north specifically, since the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's sites are in the center and the south?
Right now, we continue to be very challenged in getting anything to the north. Our WFP colleagues have managed at some point, but there's been a lot of looting. It remains extremely challenging. Sigrid Kaag has today's her last day on her post. As of tomorrow, our colleague Sarah Poole will be the the officer in charge of the special coordinator's office. Whether it's her or her colleagues, and what Sigrid was doing before is to keep trying, keep saying the same things, keep engaging. But I think the lack of progress is clear for everyone to see. Abdelhamid, and then we'll go here, and then Benno.
Thank you. Today, 85 Palestinians were killed. Al-Aqsa Hospital was bombed. A school sheltering civilians were bombed. And in the port of Gaza, on the beach, there was an attack, and about 22 people were killed. And most of them women and children. This is also did not show up neither in Khiar's briefing or in your briefing about today. I again ask, why is that?
I think I don't know how clear I could have been when today I said that the Secretary General has condemned all the killings of civilians at the hands of Israeli forces. We don't always get real-time information, but I think our position is clear.
My second question, there is an Arabic proverb that says, I keep cursing them, cursing the thieves while they're taking the camels away. The UN keeps doing that, calling on Israel to pleading with Israel, asking Israel, asking to investigate, calling on Israel to abide by law or to allow humanitarian aid, and yet Israel does not listen. I asked the ambassador today, give me one example. If a settler was put on trial, one, and you know he couldn't. He gave me the 2016 when the Dawabsha family was burned to death.
What is the question, Abdelhamid?
The question, why you cannot have something else other than appealing to Israel, calling
Look, it is, I would,
begging
we
Israel.
live, I mean, the Secretary General's powers within the UN are clear for all. He has very limited powers. The power rests in the hands of member states. And I think the Secretary General, in his remarks on Thursday, was extremely clear about the repeated violations of the Charter that we're seeing these days, right? The flouting of international law, and calling on member states to uphold the ideals and the law that they have themselves have drawn up, that they themselves have signed on to. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, back on the contaminated aid. Gazan authorities, they came out Friday saying that they had documented 4 testimonies of civilians who had found the oxycodone in flour. Given that this is coming out of the flour that they had gotten from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, is the UN Secretary General concerned about these reports? Does he have a reaction to hearing, about this?
Of course, any type of these kinds of reports are concerning. We just have no way, at this point, I have no way of confirming them or denying them.
Are you guys looking into the possibility
we've asked our colleagues on the ground, but there's I have no information to share with you one way or another.
Is there a possibility that you guys could look into doing an investigation?
We will try to get answers, but we're also operating in the middle of a war zone. But whatever answers we will get, we will try to share with you.
Okay.
Thank you. Benno.
Thank you. Thank you, Steph. You just said, so that's a clarification. You just said that it's fine by you if the GHF is working and delivering aid if they meet security and safety standards. Does that mean that if they meet all the standards, would you be fine with them taking over the aid deliveries?
It's not about, listen, there is enough needs. There is enough work in Gaza for everyone to be on the front lines of delivering humanitarian aid. The GHF is currently running a food distribution system. We are asking for humanitarian operations that meet certain standards. We work with partners. We work with different NGOs, local NGOs, international NGOs. The only thing that we asked is for people to meet those standards. And no humanitarian organization can do it alone.
Okay, and then I have a very different question about health coverage. Can you remind me of the United Nations standpoint on this? Should every human being have the right to health coverage in terms of health insurance?
You're testing my limits of international law. We do believe in health coverage, yes.
So,
now that I've put my foot in it, yes,
and now
exactly.
we go to the United States.
Yeah.
The so-called big, beautiful bill, according to estimates, will leave 12 million people in the United States without health care. Does that sound right and just to you then?
Look, I'm not going to get dragged into a political debate in this country. What I can tell you, and I think whether it's WHO or others have spoken about, the large numbers of human beings throughout the world who are without any sort of coverage. And member states should all find ways to ensure that people are healthy. Linda, then Yvonne, then Gabriel, then Alex.
Thank you, Steph. I apologize if I missed this, but I was wondering if the SG had any response to the WHO report on the origins of, the COVID pandemic, and basically, I gather that the panel didn't receive the necessary cooperations from countries to, make a decisive assessment.
We support the work of WHO as they are the technical the agency with the technical know-how in this domain, and I think and on the issue of COVID and the origins of COVID, we've strongly encouraged every member state to cooperate fully with the WHO. Yvonne.
Thank you. Back to the GHF. So could you just give some more details on the conversation that you had on the ground with the GHF? And do you see it developing into a situation where you may entertain the possibility of cooperation?
No, the conversation, I don't know if I was clear enough, the conversations at a senior level happened a few weeks ago in Israel. We were asked to come to a briefing by the GHF, I think by the Americans, and we did, and we heard them, and we expressed our concerns with that to them, and that was that. They went on their way, and they're operating the way they're operating.
Okay, but then to my second question, can you foresee a moment at which you decide actually you will cooperate?
I think the point is we will work with NGOs, large and small, who meet the standards that we require. And it's not the standards that we require so, we in New York can feel better about it. It's the standards that require so that Palestinians who are trying to get food don't have to fear that they're going to be shot while trying to get that food. They don't have to walk miles through militarized zones to get that food, where they don't have to worry about what they're actually getting. That's what we're saying. Gabriel.
Two questions. One is, has the GHF ever come to the UN and said, we want to work with you, how can we help you, rather than you going to the GHF?
They've I think listen, I don't want to speak for them. We're always open to dialogue, but again, it's not as if we're asking to do everything. They're just basic principles which should be logical and clear for everyone, that when you operate a humanitarian operation, you're not adding risk to people already facing hunger, right? You're not adding stress to a situation that I cannot even fathom how stressful it is. There is room for a lot of actors in this space, but there are certain things that need to be done a certain way.
And just on Sigrid Kaag, I should know the answer to this, but I don't off the top of my head. Is she still the senior humanitarian coordinator?
No, she's finished her
finished
UN
that one.
mandates.
And so the
Yep.
second mandate is the one she was doing concurrently.
Yeah,
she's
finished her UN mandates.
Got it. Both of them, thank you.
Yes, sir. Alex.
Thanks, Steph. Happy International Asteroid Day. On Iran and IAEA, has Iran formally notified the United Nations about its bill suspending cooperation with IAEA?
Not the Secretariat, as far as I know, but you should check with the IAEA if they've informed the IAEA.
Can I have one more?
Of course.
On completely different topic, on Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
Azerbaijani authorities have reportedly detained two Russian journalists, Sputnik journalists, on allegation of working as intelligence agents. Do you have any comments on
I'll
this
have to
regard?
look in the case. I haven't seen that report.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. Abdelhamid, you're holding the mic. I fear it's not just...
I mean, does the SG have any slightest doubt in his mind that Israel is going after the Palestinian people as a whole? To obliterate the Palestinians?
I think the Secretary General's position on what is going on could not be clearer, and I think he said it in very clear ways on Friday. Thank you all. Hasta mañana.